Hello? Hello? Yes. I'm just about to start an IND meeting. Can you please call me back some other time? Okay. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I prefer if you text me. Can you come around 8:15? Okay, thanks. Bye. Yeah. Okay. Okay, we're gonna get started, everyone. Calling this meeting of the Independent Neighborhood Democrats to order. This is our January annual meeting. As we begin every meeting, President James Campbell for the next 5 minutes. I'm so done. The leadership of the Independent Neighborhood Democrats welcomes debate and a discussion on topics of concerns to the members of the community by candidates for office and others. IND believes in the right to free political speech, but believes strongly that personal attacks, profanity, intimidating or threatening gestures or words, attempts to silence speakers, or similar inappropriate behaviors are unacceptable. Individuals engaging in such behavior will be asked to leave. Quick FYI for people on Zoom, if you can, please make sure your Zoom name matches your real name, just for intents purposes. And if you're watching on Facebook Live, please leave a comment. It's just so everyone's aware, we're going to be holding our club elections, and then we'll be hearing from candidates for various offices, public offices. So everyone's aware also, just like with our last meeting, candidates will have 15 minutes to speak, so it'll be about themselves, take questions from the audience, etc. So with that, I'm going to bring up our list of candidates for everyone. I also share the screen so everyone on Zoom can see it. I can find it. It's the share screen. There we go. Share. Okay. So everyone's aware. Officers were nominated at our November meeting. That is the only meeting at which officers can be nominated unless there is a vacancy in there with corresponding secretary. We do have precedent within our club for multiple people to hold that position, so there would be 2 people holding it. So it'd be Eileen Doherty and Maya Kornberg. So you see the candidates on the left side for the officers, and on the right side are the at-large board members. We can have up to 20 at-large board members. You have to have been a member in good standing and also dues paying and member for a year. The chair at this time will accept any other nominations for executive board. And if you're on Zoom, because I can't necessarily see, please unmute yourself. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Hearing none, nominations are now closed. Also, just note that Danielle Zuckerman was nominated previously, but she, due to a new job, which we are very happy about, is unable to serve. With that, the chair will now entertain a motion for unanimous consent of the officer and board list. Moved by Julia. Is there a second? Second by Matt. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations, Madam President.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I didn't prepare a speech or anything, but I think we should give Seamus another round of applause because he was an amazing president for the past 2 years. And these are some really big shoes to fill, but I'm going to do my best. So we have a lot of elections coming up in the next 2 years, especially this coming year. And I'm really excited for my board and myself to be running this club with all of your input and all of you over the next year. Let's try to make it through 2026 first, I guess, and then we'll see how it goes. Okay, so we are starting with candidates at 7, which is in 3 minutes.
Actually, got to stop share. That's on me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great. Can everyone on Zoom see everything? Let me see. Okay, I got a yes. Okay, great. So do we have Drew Warshaw here? Our 7 p.m. candidate? I'm not seeing him. What does one do in that sort of situation? Okay. Well, I guess technically it's 2 minutes. Okay, in the 2 minutes that we have, does anyone want to share anything that they're excited about regarding elections in 2026, or something we could do as a club? Yes, Matt.
I would just like to share that I'm excited about the February 1st winter warm-up.
Ooh, thank you. Okay, I too am excited. If you don't know about this event, please ask anyone from the board, but it is an amazing holiday party that we throw every year post the holiday kind of frenzy in December, so that you're not sick of holiday parties. And it'll be at the location where we've held it for the past few years in Brooklyn Heights, at Jonathan's. Yes, it's in the email that Seamus beautifully sent a few days ago. It is on February 1st at 3 o'clock until 6. Joan, do you have any other details you want to share?
Somebody gave me this delicious candy.
I'm sorry to call on you when your mouth is full with candy.
Put it on one side of my mouth so I could speak without mumbling. 3 to 6, the location is 100th Street, same as we've had every year. It's called the Sky Lounge for a reason. It's a 2-story. And it's on like the 24th floor, something like that. It's beautiful. And it's a freebie. We encourage you to bring something to share. The club provides some liquid, wine and some soda, and we've invited 35 electeds, including the mayor and the governor and everybody in between. All right? And so we do get a big turnout. We encourage you all to come. It's a fun event. Look forward to seeing you there.
Great, thank you, Joan. And I see Mr. Lander has just walked in to the room. Oh, okay, great. And Drew is here. Okay, got it. Okay, Mr. Warshaw. Mr. Warshaw. You're up, yes. It's okay. A whole host of people just came up. Okay, you have, hi. I'm Julia.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So you have 15 minutes. You can use that as a question, I'll practice on later on for. And yeah, maybe sit at this table because I think they'll be able to see each other.
Do this?
Yeah,
Okay.
that looks good.
Make sure you use the mic so
Yeah, use them so that on Zoom they can hear you.
I think it's on. Hey, everyone. You just say go. Okay.
Okay.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out. My name is Drew Warshaw. I am running for New York State Comptroller, and I am running because the cavalry is not coming. We are in a dark moment in this country and in our politics, and we need to go get as much political power as humanly possible and as much money as we can get our hands on, and to flex that power and to flex that money for people without it. And the cavalry is not coming. The cavalry is us. The cavalry is all of us. We are going to do this. We have the power. And most recently, and I do want to introduce myself, but I just want to jump in to the why I am running. Because I got to this moment, this sort of sense that it has to be us, because I was the co-CEO of the largest affordable housing nonprofit in the United States, in the whole country. And every day I went to work, and every day I went home to my two boys in Lower Manhattan, Benjamin and Jacob, and my wife Charlotte, and I felt like we were losing. And it wasn't even just a feeling like we were losing, we were losing. I was at the best possible place outside of government to address the housing crisis, the single greatest crisis, I think, in this country, besides the fact that someone in Washington, D.C. wants to take away our democracy. But for that, I think this is it. And we were getting smoked. It wasn't even close. And I'm working with 1,100 dedicated humans who are all doing God's work to try and address this housing crisis, and we're not even coming close. And I look over here, and it turns out there's a position in government, in state government, that has more power and more money than you could possibly imagine. One person sits on $300 billion of public capital. The third, or depending on how you count it, the fourth largest public pension fund in the United States of America. And here we are at Enterprise, at this nonprofit of mine, and all we need is money. All we need is capital. And then we need government to do a bunch of other things that I'll speak about tonight. And the person sitting on $300 billion, they have the money. We don't have to ask the governor. We don't have to ask the legislature. One guy runs the third largest fund in the United States of America, and that money is not going to address this crisis. And that is where I said, we've got to do something different. We cannot keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, like we have for the last 18 years, and expecting a different result. We have to do something different. And I hope I get your endorsement. I really do. I want this endorsement. But more than anything else, I hope you endorse for change. Because for the last 18 years, we haven't had it. And we're in a moment where we are at a moment of urgency, where if there is power and there is money and it is not being flexed for the people without it, then you gotta step aside and you gotta start doing the work. And so what did I do? I was born and raised in New York. I spent time in the government sector. I spent time in the private sector. I spent time in the nonprofit sector. We talked about my nonprofit experience. My government experience, I was blessed to be the chief of staff at the Port Authority in 2008, 7 years after 9/11 and the attacks, when the World Trade Center was still a 16-acre hole in the ground. And you all remember, if you were living in New York, it was a 16-acre hole in the ground, and it was peak government dysfunction. Nothing was getting built. And for the next 4 years, we got there, and we leveraged the power of government, and we made government work, and we got the buildings built, and we opened the memorial by the 10-year anniversary, and we took that chaos, and we took that dysfunction, and we turned it into restoration and to life. And that's what we did in government. And then I went to business school, and then spent the next 8 years in the renewable energy business. I built more solar farms than any public official in the United States, because I felt like we had to do something to combat climate change, and we had to get as much of this solar and as much of this wind in the ground as we could, and we weren't doing it fast enough, and for 8 years I did that. But living in Lower Manhattan with my two boys going to public school, the affordability crisis mushrooming around us, I realized that if we can't afford our home, and New Yorkers can no longer afford to live in New York, what do we have? So we can save the species, we can save the planet, but if people can't live here every day and live a dignified life, and live a life full of love, and live a life full of what they want to do and their family wants to do, then everything else goes away. And that's why I joined Enterprise, and that's why I went to attack the affordable housing crisis. But again, we were losing. And so what would I do very differently with all this power and all this money? Because I am not running because I'm 44 years old and the guy in there has been there for 18 years and he's 71 years old. That's not why I'm running. That's a terrible reason to run. I am running because I have a fundamentally different vision for how to use this power and how to use this money. 3 ways to address the cost crisis and affordability crisis. 3 ways that I would do the job very differently. 1, this public pension fund, the way he invests it is insane. It's insane. He takes $300 billion and he gives it to 664 different Wall Street bankers to try to beat the market. That's their whole point. We give them our fees, taxpayer-funded fees. Taxpayers fund the pension fund. We give them our fees. Their value proposition is they beat the market net of those fees. And if they did, great. It's a win-win. Fine, no problem. But no one in 18 years has ever quantified his investment performance. This is something you can do. We can quantify it. One guy invests all this money. So we did for the first time in 18 years. And it turns out over the last 18 years, he has underperformed his own benchmarks by 39%. In that 18 years, he paid these Wall Street bankers $11.3 billion in fees to not do their job. To not do their job. And if you and I didn't do our job for 18 years, we'd be fired. Not even close. Wall Street would fire us. We can't seem to fire Wall Street. But that's exactly what I'm going to do. Because we don't need 664 Wall Street managers sucking up our fees and sucking up our value. We don't need the middleman. We're going to invest our funds in a bunch of diversified, low-cost, practically free index funds. That's it. We're going to do the thing that everyone says you should do with your money. And this is our money. And what he says is the pension fund is fully funded. We have one of the best funded pension funds in the United States, and he's right. He's right. But he doesn't tell you why. And it turns out the reason why it's fully funded is because it's the law. It has to be. It has to be fully funded. And you may not believe, but it is. Mickey Mouse could have been state control over the last 18 years. It has to be fully funded. The question is how? How is it fully funded? It's fully funded not because of his investment performance. We know he didn't perform. It's fully funded because New York taxpayers paid an additional $59.1 billion of extra property taxes and extra state income taxes to bail him and his bankers out. That's what happened. We published a 51-page report that he cannot respond to because there is no response. It didn't work. At business school, on day 1, they tell us you can't beat the market net of fees. He's done the exact opposite of the thing that they teach us to do, the fundamentals. He's done the opposite. And he keeps paying these guys even though they don't do their job. So we're going to get rid of that. What he doesn't spend this money on is housing. So I proposed, 5 minutes, I proposed a $10 billion housing fund, the largest housing fund in the United States. And I did this for a living. We have experience. And he says, no, you can't take any of this money and put it in housing. And I say, why? And he says, well, it's going to hurt the pension fund. Well, I did this for a living. We earned a reasonable risk-adjusted rate of return. We can do this. And you're sitting on $300 billion, and 1 out of every 7 New York City public school students don't go home at night because they don't have one. And you are running $300 billion, and you're making a flim-flam argument that maybe it's not going to return? Well, I have experience, and I'm here to tell you that it does. And if you are sitting on all of that money, you better be addressing this housing crisis, and he is not. The last thing that I would do, and I want to make sure there's time for questions, is I want to give New Yorkers $20 billion of their money back. And people say, what are you talking about? So there's this thing called the New York State Unclaimed Fund. And the New York State Unclaimed Fund is where all of our uncashed checks or the insurance benefits that those insurance companies don't try that hard to get back to us, or we might have moved and a utility rebate didn't get to us. So all this money eventually flows up to the state controller's office in the State Unclaimed Fund. And there is $20 billion, $20 billion of New Yorkers' money in the New York State Unclaimed Fund. We're in an affordability crisis. And $20 billion of New York's money is locked up in this fund. And when the current comptroller was appointed 18 years ago, that number was $7 billion, right? And that's still too high. It should be zero. It's New Yorkers' money. It's our money. It's your money. It should be zero. But again, we can quantify his performance. Over the last 18 years, that number nearly tripled. He can't give it away fast enough. Why? He doesn't know how. There isn't the urgency. He's never been challenged. He's never been forced to do more. And we finally called him out on it. And we said, what are you doing sitting on $20 billion of New Yorkers' money? And he said, well, you got to go to this website, and then you got to fill out some forms. And you got to jump through some hoops to prove that it's your money. It's your money. The burden of proof shouldn't be on you. We know your name. We know how much you're owed. We live in 2026 where my phone knows more about my personality than I do. My phone knows where I live. The state comptroller with access to all this data, they can find us. We just need a change. We need someone to go in there and think differently and act urgently and recognize that people cannot afford to live in New York, and you can do something about it. So I just want to end where I began. The cavalry is us. It's all of us. I hope that you will vote for change. I hope that you will give me a chance with the experience that I have rebuilding the World Trade Center, building renewable energy, building affordable housing, and take that real world experience and bring it to this office. Thank you very much. I ended early because I wanted more questions.
Yeah.
I've also worked in financial services for over 30 years. And so I just one point, and then I have a question. So one point is when I was in Alliance back in the day.
Excuse me, Aileen, if you stand up.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, some mic, some mic.
Yeah, so when I was at Alliance, when I was at Alliance way back, what we would do for pension funds is we would have a lower rate of fee. The fee would be lower. And I'm not quite sure where along the line that the fees of pension funds are supposed to be now the same as a regular client.
Right.
So that's one thing.
Right.
Second thing is, we also ran a lot of pension funds, and we were very aware of the fiduciary standard.
Yeah.
And so it's easy to say, we're going to throw money here, we're going to throw money there. You have to have a very
100%.
reasoned, believe me, my parents are teachers. Thanks to New York City pension funds, they're doing really well.
Yeah.
So with that, I would love to see your returns
Yeah.
on your housing investments over the years and how that compares
Sure.
to what the market is.
I'll be very clear
I'm not
about
a
that.
fan of index at all. I don't think if you have $10 billion, you should not be spending. You have the ability to actually have the best quality investment manager, and that's who you should do. The index funds, I don't think the managers are putting their best people
Got it.
in. And then finally, if you could send us all your reports
Yeah.
that you put together.
It's on the website, drewwarshaw.com.
All right.
Please go. It's right there. We have the receipts. I want to get to that question. I also realized that we have the former New York City Comptroller in the room, and he has been one of the leaders of getting out of the fossil fuel companies that are killing the planet. And back to your fiduciary duty, it turns out it's also killing the pension fund. And one of the things that I'm going to do is, like Brad Lander, and unlike Tom DiNapoli, this is where they differ. We're going to get out of those fossil fuel companies, and we're going to do it, not because I spent 8 years in the renewable energy industry, and I care a lot about climate change, which I do. We're going to do it because the returns are better if we do. Brad showed that, and we're going to do that there. In terms of housing, Tom DiNapoli on his website says the job description of that pension fund is to earn 5.9%. That's what he says, the target return. It's on his website. At Enterprise, we earned 8 to 10%. 8 to 10. And last time I checked, that's higher than 5.9%. So this idea, which is not a thing, and if you ask people who have done this for a living, can you earn a strong risk-adjusted return and address the housing crisis? The answer is yes and yes. And don't buy the fact that you can't. That is 18 years of the same type of thinking. And we have to change that.
Thank you. Thank you, Drew.
Thank you, everyone. Oh, so grateful. Thank you. Okay, appreciate it. I'll be around.
You can talk to them after the meeting, of course. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming.
This is great.
Okay, and now we'll have the former comptroller, as Mr. Warshaw just said. Thanks, Brad. So use your 15 minutes.
Great. Yeah, super. Good evening, IND. I want to congratulate Seamus on his great leadership and welcome Julia to hers. And thank you, Karen, and everyone who's a member of the board of this great organization. Welcome to our Assembly member, Joanne Simon. I'm Brad Lander. Until 15 days ago, I was the New York City Controller. I first came before IND way back when I was the executive director of the Fifth Avenue Committee. So I've been working with you guys a long time on the issues that matter in the neighborhood, fighting evictions, preserving buildings that would otherwise have been abandoned, building genuinely affordable housing for working and middle-class families in this neighborhood. You'll remember when we merged with the Carroll Gardens neighborhood women and knit them in to job training programs that have now, believe it or not, trained over 10,000 people for a living wage, career path jobs. And what I learned in all that work at that time is that you build from the neighborhood up, not from the top down, and that you build broad coalitions with people, even when you disagree with them on an issue, because the next week, the next month, the next year, you might find some way to work together. And I think that's the kind of leadership this 5-alarm fire moment demands, and I don't believe it's the kind of leadership that we are getting from our current Congress member. It's what you've seen from me in the City Council. We took on some really big, tough issues like the integration of the District 15 middle schools and the Gowanus rezoning, and not everyone agreed on each piece of that, but we stuck together as a community, and as a result, thousands of units of affordable housing, integrated middle schools, better schools across the district. I'm tempted, after hearing the prior conversation, to tell you all about the controller's office, but I'm going to resist the temptation to do it, except to say that we did grow those funds to over $300 billion, went from fourth to third, beat all our benchmarks, even as we divested fossil fuels, made historic investments in affordable housing. When Signature Bank failed, and put 35,000 units of housing at risk. We actually made my favorite investment of the term and bought the mortgages on those 35,000 units, all of them preserved as affordable housing and beating their 11% hurdle rate. And we took on some tough, fights with Amazon, with Starbucks, with BlackRock on behalf of New Yorkers. So I'm not afraid to take on tough fights. Did that in the mayor's race as well. Thank you, IND, for your support. That did not go exactly as I mapped it out. But I'm really proud of the race I ran and the race we ran. We prevented Andrew Cuomo from being elected mayor of New York City. We worked together to call attention to Elon Musk stealing $80 million from us, and to ICE and Trump's abductions and detentions and deportations of our neighbors. That in many ways for me was the most significant moment of that campaign, was calling attention to that and then starting to work with neighbors to build a network of defense, not only at 26 Federal Plaza, but with Hands Off NYC out in the neighborhoods as well. That's what we've got to do, is stand up and fight back together. And then down the stretch, I helped build a coalition that elected Zohran Mamdani the mayor in a way that I feel very hopeful now can confront this affordability crisis and stand up to Trump, and doing it by being Team New York City, by organizing together to stand up and fight. And if you saw my launch ad, it's like got a Mr. Rogers vibe. Because I'm of this neighborhood, I believe empathy is our superpower, but it's Mr. Rogers with a steel backbone who stands up and fights against Trump or ICE or Musk or those forces coming for us. And that's what we need now. This is a 5-alarm fire for our democracy. Not only that Trump has taken over countries and killing citizens in the street and deporting our neighbors, but that people have lost so much trust in government, that the idea we can rebuild a democracy that creates equal opportunity, that offers affordable housing, that have good jobs, people don't believe it. So it's fight back and it's build something genuinely better. And you can only do that by organizing together. So I do not believe that at this 5-alarm fire moment that having a quarter billionaire who spent millions of dollars of his own personal fortune to buy the seat and then could not bring himself to endorse or even vote for the Democratic nominee for mayor of New York City, who's voted to censure other Democratic colleagues, that he can build the team that we need, that he can represent this community effectively, that he can mobilize and organize us for the fight that we need, the fight of our lives. And that's why I am running for Congress and asking for your support to be the next Congress member from the 10th Congressional District of New York. You've seen me, so you know what I will do. I will organize together to stand up and fight against rapidly advancing fascism. Yes, of course, that's supporting impeachment, that's asking tough questions in Congress, but it's also organizing on the ground in this neighborhood and building a bridge, a coalition of progressive and moderate Democrats on the ground in our neighborhood and all across the country. And that's what I'll be doing on immigration, on foreign policy, on housing, on budget cuts, on that full range of issues. It's building back, working on the issues that will help deliver in New York the housing and good jobs and healthcare and public education and childcare that every working family needs. My favorite legislation I passed in the city council is a set of bills that made it so that fast food workers, freelancers, deliveristas, Uber and Lyft drivers, tens of thousands of workers now have good jobs with billions of dollars in their pockets instead of the bank accounts of Uber and Lyft and DoorDash and McDonald's. We need that kind of legislation in Washington. The Freelance Isn't Free Act I passed and the new administration is aggressively enforcing. I got a 51-0 vote. Even the Republicans at that point knew you can't steal money from working people that they've already earned. The current member votes the right way, signs on to the Democratic bills, but has no track record organizing with and delivering for working people on affordable housing, on good jobs, for our public schools. So that's what I'll be doing, fighting back, building that more equal economy. And I guess let me just say one word at the end, because we certainly have foreign policy differences as well. Those are complex in this neighborhood, so I'll just tell you where I stand. I am a very proud Jewish New Yorker. I believe in the vision of Israel as a Jewish and democratic state, and I hate so passionately what it has done in Gaza, which I do believe is a genocide of Palestinians, and which we are paying for with our taxpayer dollars. And I believe it is possible to be a self-loving, proud Jew, to fight anti-Semitism, to believe in that vision of Israel as a Jewish and democratic state, but to say unlimited American support for what's happening has to stop. Having said that, there are different points of view on that issue in this room and in this community, and I'm always going to try to be a bridge builder. And the fact that the current Congress member, when his office got protested, and look, I called it out when it got vandalized, but the fact that rather than find a way to engage with people across the district, shut that office down and moved it to a far less accessible place where it's hard to get to, that's not the bridge building that I believe that we need at this moment. So I'm standing here to be a fighter in this time when our democracy's on the line, but most of all, to represent my neighbors, all of you, this district, in the fight of our lives. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I'd love to take your questions.
Okay, I thought, okay. Thanks for coming, Brad. So my question is, the current Congress member, when he ran, the big selling point, he was running against a lot of very qualified, fantastic elected official women. And he said that, he had,
went through the impeachment process, and that he would be able to think outside the box and be creative and hold Trump accountable. I have not seen any of that. Can you explain what you would do? And it seems like you talked about it when you're talking about the organizing. Why is that important right now? Because this is not the regular rules that we're going by right now. So what are you going to do, differently, and why is that organizing important right now?
Yeah. I mentioned the work Hands Off NYC is doing. You know, both the current congressman and I have spent a lot of time at 26 Federal Plaza, and I give him his credit for doing that work. He's using his office there as an effective tool to help habeas motions get filed. I will absolutely continue doing that work. But the organizing out in the streets is what's, I don't know how many signal chats, I'm on, that are trying to make sure that people show up in Sunset Park when ICE agents are out in the neighborhood, making sure people know where and when they are, can stay away, can stay at home, can get connected to legal counsel quickly if something happens. And look, it's a frightening time right now. I mean, watching what's happening in Minneapolis, where their protests were met with a murder, an assassination, and now threats of the Insurrection Act. It's very frightening. So I understand why some people would say, I gotta stay home. But what we need is those people willing to get out on the streets and stand up to hold on to our rights. There's this political science research that shows when 3.5% of your people get out in the streets to stand up and organize together, that's like a point at which, you can push back and win against authoritarianism. And let's give props to the incredibly brave people, especially, but not only the women of Iran right now, who are standing up so bravely. But what we have done, Trump especially, burning up our credibility in foreign policy. But let's be clear there, it's built, he's, imposing now great power competition and taking the world back to like a vision of empire to put money in his own pockets and oil barons and his relatives and cronies. But partly what that's built on is a failure of democratic foreign policy because rather than really support a rules-based international order, Democrats and Republicans in Congress kept allowing each president to take more and more power and erode multilateral institutions. So I think we need hearings not only on ICE crimes, but on the corruption. Remember the Church Committee that did corruption in foreign policy out of the Nixon administration? I think we'll probably need something like that again to, so it's both organize on the ground and demand accountability through Congress.
I saw Steve next, and then Maya, and then the gentleman.
Thank you, Brad. I understand that this is a divisive issue, and I'm pretty strong and adamant in my opinions. Do you support the funding of military support for Israel, and do you support the BDS movement?
So I don't support the BDS movement. I don't want to see it. It's a nonviolent movement that people have a right to participate in. I don't think you should be deported. I don't think it should be made illegal. I don't think state power should be used against you. But I have visited before, and I will again. I want to see Israel thrive as a Jewish and democratic state. In terms of military aid, I want to end the sending of offensive weapons, the 2,000-pound bombs that are being dropped right now, even still, when we're supposed to be a ceasefire, that are leveling schools and hospitals in Gaza. We're sending them and paying for them, and I want that to stop. And I think military aid to every country, not only Israel, should be conditioned on human rights compliance. I do want to see civilians protected. So I support Iron Dome, which protects Israeli civilians. But what is protecting Palestinian civilians in Gaza and the West Bank from the bombs that we're paying for? So, that is a nuanced answer, but an honest and a heartfelt one. No, we should be able to have dialogue across difference. There's people that disagree from my left for sure, people who, anyway, I'm glad we could have the conversation.
Hey, Brad. This is following on Susanna's question. I spend a lot of time in my day job thinking about Congress and how it should respond to executive abuse of power. You talked about the Nixon era. I think there's a lot of similarities right now that we can learn from. Specifically, I'm curious, what would be your plan to do everything that we can to push back against executive usurpation of power of the purse, which is a congressional power that the president with impoundment and other things is just stealing.
Yeah.
And war powers, again, these are things that the president has been stealing for quite some time, a few decades that Congress has been ceding power, but we're at an inflection point. I'm curious, this is a question I would ask of every congressional candidate. How do we retake those?
No, I really agree. And as I say, we've been drifting there a long time. I do want to give like nice shout out to Jerry Nadler, who's been one of the few Congress members willing to push back against presidents of his own party when they sought to expand their power. Normally what it's been is like Democrats say okay when a Democratic president has power, Republicans when a Republican. What we're going to have to do in the next term is try to use the window created by the 2028 elections to win some Republican members of Congress back to the idea that Congress, they care anything about congressional power. I mean, they have fully abdicated, the role of Congress to make war, to pass budgets, to do the things that Congress has to do. And there needs to be a reset. I think it's possible there can be a moment of reset, partly if we shine a spotlight on corruption in the way the Church Committee did and what's happening with ICE. But let's remember the next 2 years, there's going to be not just a Democratic presidential primary, after this election, but a Republican one as well. And that's going to start creating some fissures. And I think some Republican members of Congress might think, I wouldn't want to be in an institution that has totally lost all its power. They're going to know there's some chance a Democrat will win in 2028. So I guess I think there needs to be a project which does, as impossible as it seems right now, in this regard have to be bipartisan. You've got to draw a line between Congress and the White House, just the lines the Constitution draws, but pull things back there. And I agree that's going to be a really important part of the next term in Congress.
Okay, one more really quick question.
So Brad, as you know, I worked hard to get you to be mayor, and we didn't make it. And I want to thank you for all you've done for the city and the community. But I have to take issue with a fundamental contradiction in what you've said and what you've done. If we really believe that we're at an existential crisis in terms of American democracy and everything else, then we should not be having primaries where the difference between two progressive candidates is something that would take a Jesuit priest or a Talmudic scholar to discern. Brad talked about his wonderful work in organizing. I was at Dan Goldman's campaign launch, and there were delegations from every one of the NYCHA houses in our district, which has the largest number of NYCHA houses in the city.
Sir, I'm going to be
what-
really strict on time, so if you have a question, can you just ask
The
it?
point was that they kept talking about the organizing and the on-the-ground work that Dan has done and his office has done consistently. Dan Goldman has been threatened since he led the impeachment against Trump, and yet you want to portray him as somebody who doesn't fight back. He's kept fighting.
What's your question, sir?
So my question is, why do we have not only this primary, but the DSA that is closely aligned with your candidacy is going to primary 3 other Democrats, and some genius was going to even primary the next Speaker of the House and the first Black Speaker of the House. All that money and energy.
So are you asking
should-
why there's a
I
primary?
want to know why we're not focusing all of our energy on flipping red seats and protecting
Okay.
vulnerable Democrats.
Thank you.
So thank you for your support in the mayor's race, and I'm sad not to have your support in this race, but I will definitely answer your question. Primaries are the place where we debate the future of the party. General elections are the place where we come together and build coalition, and I have always done that. The fact that he didn't support Zoran in the general election, the fact that he voted to censure Congressmember Rashida Tlaib for her point of view, signed a letter of, like a kind of nasty letter against Pramila Jayapal for hers. Like, I am a better builder of democratic unity. I went out and knocked doors for Tom Suozzi and Laura Gillen, about as moderate as you can get. I really want to be the kind of progressive that Pat Ryan is a moderate, somebody who's clear, who represents their community. And I just think I am closer to the median voter of this district in my point of view. He can say now he's for Medicare for all or a Green New Deal, all things he ran against in 2022. Like, he's a moderate Democrat pretending to be a progressive because he knows he represents a progressive district. I'm a progressive Democrat who loves this district, who will give you better constituent service. And in terms of organizing, I got a 30-year career of organizing on the ground. He has a noble career as having been a prosecutor and then spent his fortune to become a Congress member. And I don't think that is the representation that we need for this time. Now, that's why we have primaries. It'll be over in June. You better believe I'll be working my butt off every single day from June till November to make sure that we flip every red seat, that we take back the House, and then we bring a bold Democratic Party to the future. I think my time is up, and I'm going to say thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you tonight.
Others who didn't get to ask questions can ask Brad. He's here in a corner in the back. Okay, we have Lydia Green up next, a candidate for Assembly.
Hi, IND. Good evening. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you to Seamus and Julia and the rest of the executive board for having me. And I'm excited to be here to talk about my campaign for a state assembly in the 52nd district. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Lydia Green. And I've been your district leader for the last 4 years. I've worked to fight the Brooklyn Democratic Party machine and worked to make the state Democratic Party, which is very complacent, actually live up to our progressive values. I've called out corruption and dysfunction from the Brooklyn Dems, including their inability to run county committee meetings and their collaboration with Republicans, as well as their opaque judicial selection process. And I've also passed resolutions at the state level in support of the New York Health Act and the New Deals for CUNY and SUNY, which shout out to Seamus for being an excellent partner on those. And day to day, I work at the Workers' Circle, which is a Jewish social justice organization that's been around for 125 years that focuses on Yiddish education and fighting to save our democracy. And now the reason that I'm running for state assembly is simple. Brooklyn is home, and it's getting far too unaffordable. My great-grandparents made Bath Beach their home when they came to America to flee pogroms and persecution in Russia. And then their kosher butcher shop that they started helped get my family through the Great Depression. My grandparents stayed in South Brooklyn. They lived in Bensonhurst and raised their daughter, my mother, there. And then she raised me in Park Slope. And I loved Brooklyn, and I saw why the rest of my family loved it too. But I also, as I was growing up, I started noticing friends from school and the block slowly disappearing. And every time it was the same explanation. It was getting just too expensive to live here. The families who raised kids in a walk-up apartment ended up having to move deeper into Brooklyn or even to Long Island. I'm lucky enough to have found an affordable apartment in this district, but so many friends, classmates, neighbors, I've personally seen get pushed out of the neighborhoods they loved because we're not building enough beautiful and affordable homes in this district. I'm running for families like yours, for families like mine, and for those who are yet to call Brooklyn their home, because I believe that Brooklyn should be an affordable and equitable place for anyone who wants to build a home here. With widening inequality in our federal and our flawless federal government, which is terrorizing our immigrant neighbors, this moment demands action at the state level. We need bold, confrontational leadership that will be creative and have political courage, and we need a whole ton more outspoken progressive legislators up in Albany to shake things up so that we can raise taxes on the rich and get universal childcare, free buses, social housing, and climate resiliency for our district. Thank you for having me here today. and I look forward to sharing my vision for a district that everyone can afford to call home.
Questions? Okay, Seamus.
Thank you. So your campaign earlier today sent out an email saying that your opponent loaned her campaign $50,000. I happen to have the campaign finance filing up today, and it is a Schedule T, which is a transfer in, not a Schedule I, which is a loan. So are you admitting that it was a mistake or what?
So she loaned herself money from a previous
No,
campaign.
it is not. It's a transfer. I have it up from the Board of Elections.
Okay, she transferred money from her previous campaign.
Yes, and then if it was a loan, it would be a Schedule I.
Anyway, she transferred money from her previous campaign. $50,000 is a lot of money to someone like me who is struggling to afford to live in this district. I don't have $50,000, and I don't know most people who do just off of hand to give themselves to fund their campaigns. And she, in previous election, has loaned herself money from her own personal funds. She, in her congressional race, loaned herself, I believe it was $400,000, which, again, a lot of money. Someone who is trying to live in this district and trying to survive here can't afford to do that.
Any other questions? Susanna? Oh, we can't hear you.
Hello. Okay, there we go. Thanks for coming. I know it takes some, courage to come here to IND when, Joanne has been with us for so long. So, my main question to you is the same one that I've asked it of people in this room, and I ask any new candidate who I've not seen be active in the district in which they are running. So, I guess I would like, an explanation. You have actually been in elected office and been, you said, district leader for 4 years. That's quite a long time to have a big platform. And yet, I'm out here all the time, obviously for my work, but also I live here. So I'm involved in a lot of neighborhood associations. I don't see you at hearings. I don't see you at community board meetings. I don't see you at civic groups. So I'm really concerned that you've been very inactive as a district leader and now want to do a job that's 10 million times harder and more complicated. So I guess the question is, given your inactivity in the district, how can you assure us that you're gonna fight for us in a lot of these really tricky and complicated community issues? And then, what's actually your background in more legislative work? Because that was a great laundry list. I support all of those, but they're just talking points. So just those are my two main things.
Sure. So I know that people are surprised to see someone like me running for office, but these are unusual times and they require new leadership and new creative approaches to introducing legislation and getting things done. And I grew up in this district. I've lived here my whole life. I've organized with my tenant association, with the NYCHA developments. During the pandemic, I helped organize a food delivery or food distribution alongside Jesse Pierce, my predecessor. And I also am excited to work in co-governance with all of you and with all of the members of the 52nd Assembly District. It's such a great district, and we have so many engaged and excited people who are ready to fight for progressive policies, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you, including IND.
Art, I see Art's hand. Yes. Matt will give you the microphone.
Thank you, yes. I have a question with regard to affordability, particularly legislation in the Assembly. What bills would you support in the Assembly to improve legislation, improve affordability? And what bills do you think Joanne has failed to support in the Assembly with regard to improving affordability in New York?
So that's a great question. And I would say one bill that's top of mind for me is the New York Health Act. We have more than half of the legislature is signed on as co-sponsors, but that's clearly not enough because it's just sitting in committee. And I personally, I'm a cancer survivor, and so I take access to healthcare really seriously. If I hadn't had it, I literally wouldn't be standing here alive in front of you. And I want to make sure that it's affordable and accessible for everyone else in this district and in our state. And in terms of what, like examples of bills that Joanne has not been an advocate on, I would say there's, well, I guess this isn't a bill, but she's been against most of the rezonings in the last few years and any efforts to bring new affordable housing to our district. And I disagree with that. We really don't have enough homes in this district. And without building more housing, big real estate can just come in and jack up the prices and make it so that only rich people are able to access the housing here. And I believe that Brooklyn should be an affordable home for everyone. And also, I'm realizing I had a longer answer to Susanna's question, which was that I also have worked to pass legislation before I got a bill passed in the city council. I wrote that bill and passed it, and I've also worked to pass other legislation. I've organized lobby days. I've passed resolutions in the state committee, and what? One more. Oh, that I passed. Thanks to your help. And I will continue fighting for affordability in this district with all of my heart because this is my home. It's been my home forever, and I love this district.
Thank you, Lydia. Thank you. Nikki, we'll hear from you. Nikki Kane is a congressional candidate. So you have 15 minutes, so just use it how you want. You can go by yourself and then take questions. What? Yes, exactly.
Hi, good evening. My name is Nikki Kane. I'm running for New York 10, and this is my service animal, Lucas Noah. How about now? Okay. So my name is Nikki Kane. I'm running for New York 10. This is my service dog, Lucas Noah. I believe healthcare is a human right. Housing is a human right. I believe abortion is healthcare. I believe we should leave the earth in a livable condition for future generations, so we need to pass a new deal. I believe we should protect trans kids, and I believe we should definitely tax billionaires. Okay, I have numerous policies I can go over. I recently ran for city council, and in part of the electioneering process, I was assaulted and punched in the face by a poll worker. I got right back up. I didn't let it deter me, and I'm here running for New York 10. I'm more than happy to take any questions you have at this time.
Okay, so if you win, name one bill that you would say is the one bill you think that Congress should pass.
I believe healthcare is a top priority, should be a top priority right now, and that we should have healthcare for all. I say healthcare is a human right. People always comment on my posts on Facebook, Twitter, etc. Nothing that requires somebody else's labor is a right. And I will say to them, when I say right, I don't mean free. I mean that it should be affordable and accessible for all of those needed. And I also say to them that even in Cuba, doctors get paid. So right does not mean free, and I think everyone should have access to healthcare, and it should be available and affordable. And this also goes for housing. Housing is also a human right.
Any other questions? Lynn?
Could you tell us what experience you have that would qualify you for this job?
I could say I'm a career tumbleweed because I've drummed myself into numerous different positions and fields, and I've always went head first. I don't know how I ended up in politics, but it was probably standing on the corner of 9th Street and 5th Avenue when I realized that they changed the lights all in one direction, and people were walking past my car because they were not familiar the light was changed. They just thought it was broken. Reached out several times to the council member who did not respond, which sparked my anger. So anger fueled my decision to run for office, and this is how I got into politics. The whole city council process, I collected the signatures myself. When I got kicked off the ballot, I went to court and represented myself, got back on the ballot. I handed out every pamphlet myself. Okay. Previous to this, I attended school at City College of New York. Yeah, City College of New York, and graduated a bachelor's degree. Moved to Florida, did some financing with small business lending. Prior to moving to Florida, I worked at Disney ABC in the corporate office doing human resources, handling payroll for people such as Barbara Walters, Hugh Downs, etc. I also worked in the school in human resources. I've done sales. I also do web design myself. I'm currently studying to become a paralegal. So I think whatever I've thrown myself into, I've always hit it on head first, and I don't see how this would be a different challenge. I think we could have someone here who's been a career politician, and we could say, yeah, they could do about it. But I think a lot of these career politicians, they just go along to get along, and I think we need someone that's going to shake things up a little bit. We need a little bit of difference. We need a little bit of change. We need some of the old guard to step aside, and we need to have the new generation lead.
Thank you. Okay, we have one more question from Seamus. You can stand up here now.
In 2023, I was getting some of your ads on Facebook, which I didn't live in the 39th district, still don't. No offense to anyone there. And so you and I had a back and forth regarding your ongoing lawsuits against the Board of Elections for being thrown off the ballot, and you threatened me with a lawsuit. Why didn't you ever file one against me?
What exactly did I say?
Because I was asking you about the status of your suits against the Board of Elections, and you told me that if I continued my conquest about asking various questions about things, you would have to file suit against me.
Okay, so let's be clear right now. I'll stick out an olive branch right here. Seamus actually invited me to come here, and I did accept his invitation. Then I went on Facebook and unblocked him because I had him blocked. So Seamus had...
You actually did not unblock me. You never blocked me to begin with. You just told me to stop because you were threatening me with a lawsuit.
No. So as I said, I unblocked him. I tried to be in good faith. So I don't like being badgered. So maybe that's why I got threatened you with a lawsuit. But the first time I actually ran 2 times for city council. As I said, I did everything myself. And I got kicked off the ballot. And I found the reason that they kicked me off the ballot was extremely frivolous, and it was gatekeeping, and it angered me. And the reason was because I served a document on the last day, even though I handed in the court papers to sign days before. And the law, our case law, said that it had to be served and delivered on the last day. I didn't know this. I actually asked a election attorney who purposely told me to wait on the last day. So I don't know if he purposely set me up or not, but there was a lot of gatekeeping I find in this process. And I had a little anger and resentment towards that. That's why I did a lot of this stuff myself, because I felt like I couldn't trust anyone. That if you're not in a political clique and you don't know the right person, or you don't have $10,000 retainer, is why I did everything myself. And I'm pretty sure the reason I probably threatened you was a lawsuit to just stop whatever you were doing. That's why I didn't file it.
All right.
Yeah. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you want to share?
I won't file one unless you want me to. I'll file an honorary lawsuit.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you. Okay. Are you ready? Okay, you are always ready. All right, and now our very own, the one and only Joanne Simon.
Hey, Joanne.
So I actually wrote out some notes. Now, usually I write out the notes and I don't look at them. So I'm not quite sure what will come out, but So anyway, I want to thank all of you. As you may have noticed, I have a cold. So if I start coughing, you have to give me more than the 5 minutes if I break up my 5 minutes by coughing. Okay. So anyway, thank you, IND. As you know, I've been proud to have your support as district leader for the assembly and for a couple of other races as well. And thank you for, IND's history of being a reformed Democratic club. We hear about this all the time, and we do need to hear more about it because Brooklyn Democratic Party has always been difficult, for lack of a better term, sometimes more difficult than others. But IND has been one of those leaders. When I was district leader, there was maybe 3 or 4 people who would vote against the county leader. And those numbers have increased as more districts have elected more reformed district leaders. So that's a good thing, and I'm very happy to see that movement. And I'm proud of the 10 years I served as the district leader as well, and passing resolutions and creating the Progressive Caucus in the state committee, which is a statewide group of progressive district leaders from around New York State. So I want to talk about the issues in this campaign that aren't just the talking points, right? So the issues that are raised today are issues that affect all of us, and we've been talking about them for years, but Mayor Mamdani's campaign really brought some of them very front and center for people who weren't really talking about those things, like affordability, like clean air and transportation and universal childcare. Those are all things, by the way, I've campaigned on in the past. And so, I'll just quickly address a particular point that was made about rezonings. Well, first of all, if you know how land use is done, it's done by New York City. We don't vote on it in New York State, elected officials. But we don't plan in New York City. Our Department of City Planning does zoning, and they basically say, here's a zone, here's the envelope, and tell the developer to propose something, and they work with the Department of City Planning around those details. The public is never involved in that until after the fact. And the problem is, a lot of times those plans suck. And so I have raised those issues where they suck. Classic example is downtown Brooklyn, where they planned it to be all commercial. There's no commercial market in downtown Brooklyn in the early 2000s. Those of us, and I led a coalition of 10 groups responding to this because they shortchanged us on traffic and transportation and transit. Do you notice there's congestion in downtown Brooklyn? Didn't address it in this rezoning. But also, we said the market is residential. You're planning for the last war. Oh no, you're just being NIMBY. Now, we didn't oppose a rezoning, we just wanted a better one. P.S. We have 27,000 new units of housing in downtown Brooklyn, and they're still building. That is not being against housing or being against the rezoning because of housing. It is being about looking at what it is that's being proposed and analyzing it and seeing how it can be improved to better serve the people of the district, as well as, in this case, in downtown Brooklyn, the people from Brooklyn and elsewhere. So that is what, in fact, I've been doing for years, is exercising thought and judgment, analyzing proposals, and working with people to improve them. And we have been able to be successful in improving some of those. But also, when I was president of the Boerum Hill Association, I realized we needed more housing in Boerum Hill. And we had 6.5 acres of parking lots. That was just, again, more congestion, just parking lots. And we got the community together, and every block association president, to get together and come up with what we thought we wanted affirmatively to have in those 6.5 acres, which, by the way, were an urban renewal area. So it was very constrained in many respects. So today we have 37.5% low to moderate income housing in Boerum Hill, downtown, where those parking lots were, and nobody is fighting over it because the community was at the table and made those tough decisions about how we would address the issues of where we would build. For example, the tall buildings are on the wider streets, not on the narrower streets. Common sense kinds of things. But that's what you need to do, and that's what leadership is about. And that's what I've been doing since I was a neighborhood association president. It's what I've been doing as a district leader. because I was very involved in community work as district leader and what I've been doing as an assembly member. And you can see that in a lot of the work that I've done. It's also what I've done as a lawyer, as a disability civil rights lawyer, in a new evolving field, which was disability civil rights, and winning one of the first big cases, the seminal cases, on proving whether or not somebody had a disability. And I did that by suing the bar examiners, who are not like a nice group of people. I don't know if you've ever taken the bar exam. Nobody likes the bar examiners, right? And we won, right? And we won at every level of the federal judiciary. And so I've been a leader in disability civil rights and in that disability civil rights law community for many years. For those of you who don't know my background, I'm a former teacher of deaf kids, and tried this seminal case on dyslexia, been involved for years in that work. I have been a community leader, and I've been working on progressive legislation and progressive issues for years, including progressive transportation, which is why people in transportation know who I am, because I've been hounding them for years. And Joan Millman will tell you the story about when she got to the assembly. She couldn't get a meeting with the board, with the commissioner, Joe Boardman of transportation, because she was a girl. So she got Felix Ortiz to also sign a letter. They decided to meet because, he was a boy. And first thing he says to her is, "Do you know Joanne Simon?" And she said, "Yeah, she's a constituent. Is she running against you?" Joan, of course, said, "No." And if she did, so what, right? So that's the kind of leader I've been and how active I've been. Now, there are a couple of big issues that I like to talk about because they are really big world issues, right? One is climate, right? And I know that all of you care about climate. I'm very proud that this year I passed a bill to repeal the 100-foot rule. Thank you very much for pointing that out. And, I've been named one of the climate champions of the year for 2025 because of that work. The fact is, passing legislation doesn't happen just because you have a bill. You have to organize around it, and you have to get people to vote for it around New York State. And in fact, a lot of things people don't agree with us here. We are in a great and wonderful bubble in this part of the world. Other people are not. Other people live in districts where, Trump won by 22 points. In my district, blank got more votes than Trump. It's a very different world here. So it took a lot to get that bill passed, and we did, and the governor signed it. And we will now be saving New Yorkers $600 million a year because they won't be paying for somebody else to start a new gas line, which is what happens now. So there are lots of ways to involve the environment. I've been doing environmental justice work for 30 years. I started doing that in Western Brooklyn on the Gowanus Expressway, working with communities throughout that district. I am known and supported by people in the environmental justice movement as well. The other issues, of course, are race and misogyny that we have to deal with, and the white supremacy in this country, right? Which is finding its way in this immigration battle. I will confess that I haven't gotten arrested recently because I had my shoulder replaced, and I have stayed as far away from handcuffs as I can because I don't want to undo my surgery. And until and unless I'm finished with physical therapy and I have a very good left hook, I'm going to not get arrested, okay? I'm just telling you that, right? And so you should know that. But of course, I have been in the past, and I have been out there, demonstrating against ICE's actions. And I am, in fact, a prime co-sponsor of all of the bills that are addressing this issue, right? The MELT Act, the RADAR Act, the New York for All Act, and the legal representation for immigrants legislation. So I've been working in those areas as well with all my colleagues. So what I will do is just say to you, I hope to have your support in the future. I hope to continue to do the work that I've been doing with you and with our communities on so many of the difficult issues. Because even though, legislators, the two things we do is we pass bills and we also do the budget. And the budget has a lot of policy in it often, or you can do or not do things. So the BQE is really a budget issue in many respects. It's also a planning issue in working with agencies that are not state agencies, right? A lot of what you do in legislation is you pass a bill, and then it gets implemented by an agency, and you lose track of it. So you have to maintain that connection to those agencies to work with them, because you want to make sure that the laws you pass get enforced, right, or implemented. So that's the kind of work that I've been doing, and that's the kind of work that I look forward to doing, and I'm happy to answer your questions. I realize it went on a little long, and I apologize. Yes, sir. This guy in the back who told me to speak into the microphone.
Is there a very niche policy that you're pushing for or that you've passed in the past that you never get to talk about because it's so niche and nerdy that you want to use this opportunity to discuss?
Well, I would say the 100-foot rule is pretty nerdy, but I've already talked about that. You know, one of the things that I did fairly early on was pass the first dyslexia bill in New York State, because I know that at the first instance, one of the problems is, A, teachers don't recognize it, but also, you know, the administration won't let you use the word dyslexia, which makes no sense, right? There are 13 categories in federal law. Learning disabilities is one of them. Blindness and visual impairment is, but you could say the name of the kind of blindness you have, but you can't say the kind of learning disability. It didn't make any sense. So I changed that law. And I've been involved in those efforts and started the first Dyslexia Day in New York, which we've been doing now. It's our 11th year, doing Dyslexia Advocacy Day. I also passed a bill with working with cops and firefighters to pass legislation to change 16 laws in New York to stop using the word policeman and fireman and make it police officer and firefighter. Because the FDNY has like 1% women, and they don't even have 1%. They were fighting for 1%. That's a little nerdy too. Thank you. Steve.
Joanne, could you please tell us, I think what you've been doing involving gun violence and gun legislation within the state? I know you've been working hard at that. Could you tell us some of the legislation that you advocated for and will continue to advocate for?
You know, I passed a bill that created a Firearm Violence Research Institute. One of the problems we've had is for years, since 1996, we didn't have federal research done because of you know, the initial legislation sunset, and it didn't get increase. And then, of course, the you know, the NRA is not a fan. I have an F from the NRA, in case you're asking. So we passed the Firearm Violence Research Institute and funded it. I also passed the first red flag law in New York State, and it was actually probably the second in the country. Then a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, I guess, I passed the Glock switch bill, which is, you know, you can take in a 3D printer and create a little mechanism that can slide into a Glock and make it a machine gun. 12,000 rounds a minute, a machine gun, by doing that. And Glock is the only handgun that had that design. Everybody else's are not so easily converted. So we passed that bill because previously my colleague Zellner Myrie and a colleague created a gun manufacturer accountability mechanism. So we had that already. So we made this so that the manufacturer, if that was used in a crime or used to hurt people, the person who was injured could in fact sue the gun manufacturer and recover under this law. The real goal of that was to get them to stop making those guns that way. And in fact, Glock is redesigning its handgun now. So that is something that was the first in the country. Glock is now redesigning its handguns so that this will not be possible in the future because they don't want to be accountable. They don't want to have to pay damages. And it took like 40 years to get this done. You explain.
I don't even need to pay. Joanne, the question everybody's wondering, have you watched Heated Rivalry? That's how hardworking she is.
No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Great question. I have a quick. No, this
First, and then you.
Hi.
Hi,
I'd like
how are
to
you?
Talk about tariffs for a second.
About who? Tariffs?
Tariffs. New York, as you know, maybe no one else does, New York is one of the very few states that has them. If you get a car in Bayonne, you have to pay 2 sets of sales taxes. What exactly are you going to do about that?
That's a very good question. What I'm going to do is not buy a car in Bayonne, number one. But the other thing is, we also have, like, if you work in New York City, but you live outside of the city, you pay city tax, right? This is actually, you're the first person who's brought that to my attention. So I don't have a good answer for you because I haven't looked at that, and I don't know how that happened or what the mechanism would be to undo that, nor is there anybody else talking about it. So one of the things that I would suggest is making that something that more legislators know about, because in fact, that may be an issue that others would raise. Right now, this year, I think one of the biggest issues we have is we want to find ways that we can raise revenue. And since this is already a source of revenue, I don't know how much, it's probably not going to be the highest on the hit parade this year, because right now we're in danger of losing billions of federal funding. So we're looking at taxing the rich. We're looking at raising revenue in other ways. I have at least 4 bills right now that would raise revenue for New Yorkers, and do it without, quote unquote, taxing the rich, but do it, which is also important.
This is really a question for the room, not you. So
thanks.
All in favor of considering everything that Joanna says after she's finished with her physical therapy, et cetera, signing on and getting her some boxing lessons, say aye, especially for the left hook.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Any other questions?
Yes, ma'am. You need a microphone.
Yes. Matt's running.
Matt's going to get a lot of exercise tonight.
Here you go. Pass it over.
It's about healthcare.
Yep.
For all of us, healthcare is going up this year.
Yep.
And for some people, it's really, really drastic. And so what can be done on the state level? And how can you help us to afford our healthcare more?
So I'm guessing you're talking about the New York Health Act? Yeah. Which is a bill I've been a prime co-sponsor and active supporter of since I got into the Assembly. So there are a lot of challenges with the New York Health Act, right? Including the fact that we have an incredibly persistent insurance industry, as you know. And even the ACA was connected to insurance industry. And that, one can complain that Obama worked too closely with the Republicans to pass that, because he ended up passing what was essentially a Republican bill. It was Mitt Romney's bill in many ways. And then they voted against it. So New York Health Act would actually do away with all of that. The challenge, of course, is doing it and the cost in changing. So, for example, Governor Cuomo would always say it's $200 million easily to switch, right? Because there's going to be a year where it's not in effect, and the state's going to have to make up this difference, right? So that period of a year or so is going to cost money. There's also opportunities for, the dark side to start pushing back on this in some ways, particularly anything that is implemented at the local level. And so in the passing of such a bill, there needs to be a very clear implementation plan, I believe. However, there is not enough support for that bill, unfortunately. We did pass it a couple of times in the Assembly years ago, but we haven't been able to do that since. As the legislature evolves, right, there are people from all over the state who don't support it. And so you have to get enough votes. You have to get really a veto-proof majority, and you have to get in both houses, and the Senate no longer has a veto-proof majority. So my analysis is we should be doing it. We should have done it a long time ago. I'm not particularly sanguine that we're going to get it done this year in such a difficult year because of the complications with that bill. And the fact that I'm not sure we have enough votes in both houses to be able to withstand a veto if that's what happens. The other thing that I think in the politics of this is that, my analysis might change in the next couple of months as people start being really killed by the loss of health care. And sometimes the only thing that gets people to move is if something bad happens, right? And that's unfortunate, but that is often part of the dynamic. If people are not insured, and they're not going to be insured for a year because you can't restart until the next a year later, right? So, and we're all being hurt by the big ugly bill, but the people who got health insurance under the ACA subsidies are going to be hurt even more. And we already know that we've lost 1 million people from health insurance in New York already. So obviously that's something we need to work on and we'll continue to work on. And I've been working closely with the sponsors as well as the advocates on that issue.
Thank you,
So thank you.
Thanks, Great. Well, right on time, I see our borough president. Everyone can shake hands with him after. He's a very friendly guy. Hi, nice to meet you. You have 15 minutes, you can use it however you want.
Okay, hello everyone. I got 15 minutes and I can use it however I want.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So I'm gonna first I want to say hi. I just got off the elevator. My mind is somewhere else, but now it's slowly coming out. Hello, Assembly members. Nice to see you. My name is Antonio Reynoso, and I'm currently the borough president of the greatest borough in the city of New York, which is Brooklyn. First and foremost, let's start with everything we agree on, right? And I'm running for Congress, and it's I think it's an exciting time. Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez decided that she wanted to retire after 3 decades of servicing our community. And I would argue if we've ever had a more sincere and honorable, hardworking, fighting elected official than Nydia Velázquez in our entire city. And she decided she was going to retire, and she's done a great job at being able to build a base or a foundation for young people to be able to run for office and win. Nydia has, I call them her kids or her godchildren, of which I am one. She invested a lot in her legacy being about allowing for the future to continue to grow in our districts. So I'm deeply grateful to have been one of her mentees and to have had the honor of somebody that she would support. Just recently, I don't know if you guys seen, 1 hour ago, Nydia endorsed me for this race to run in her stead. Thank you. And I want to give you a little bit about my story and why Congress is meaningful and why I think it's important. I was a child raised on welfare, food stamps, and Section 8. I was a kid that saw government show up for him, someone that had food in their stomach and a roof over their head because government decided to do something about helping people. We forgot about what it is to help people. My mother never had to deal with ICE in 1977 when she got here from the Dominican Republic. Instead, this country said, we will support you in hopes that you would contribute greatly to this country, but also so you can have a shot at the American dream. And my mom never thought about buying a house in Long Island, never saw, owning a car or a big garage or owning a business. What my mother wanted to do is to make sure her kids had the brightest future they could possibly have. So they sacrificed everything to give us a high quality education and make sure that we can advance in our lives. And in one generation, a Dominican immigrant with no money is seeing her son run for Congress. And if there was ever an American dream, I think that would be it. And I say it because I'm not talking about what I'm fighting for in an existential way. SNAP benefits mean something to me. SNAP benefits saved my life, made it so that my mother never had to worry that her 3 kids would go hungry. I lived in Section 8 housing my entire life until I came back from college and started working for Acorn. But I know what it is to have a roof over your head and not have to worry about walking into a shelter. You have secure housing. I talked about ICE and why I want to abolish ICE. And I want to be very clear. We have a system right now, a judicial and criminal system in this country to deal with criminals that have committed crimes and have a deportation method that was used under Barack Obama, under both Bushes, under Biden, that had millions of criminal, undocumented folks from this country deported, right? We already had that system. What this is that he's used a military force to go into our communities to cause havoc. And he said he was going to go after criminals, murderers, and rapists. And what we're seeing is that more than 80% of the people that have been deported have no criminal history outside of coming into this country without papers. So we're not going after the worst. What they're going after is any immigrant that they can get their hands on. We have people in courts that are being arrested and deported, people that are following through on what this country is asking them to do to move to a path towards legalization or residency here in this country. They're doing that work the right way, the way we've asked them to do it, and are being deported. Those things matter to me. Again, I didn't read it in a piece of paper. I didn't see it on the TV. I experienced it with my life. And I want to be able to pay that forward, contribute. No one is going to fight more for my parents' existence, for my parents' experiences or my experience than the person that's actually went through it. And the important thing here on the second half is you've always seen me fight. I was born under the New Kings Democrat banner, and another independent club, your sister club, that is fighting to make sure that we can wrest power away from a few individuals in county and give it to a Democratic Party of the people. We've been doing that, and technically, and I just want to say this is just an NKD view, we're maybe 3 or 4 district leaders away from giving the power back to the people and taking it away from what I think is a corrupt county party. That's work that I started when NKD was founded in a basement with just 10 of us. We did that fighting. Then Vito Lopez ran against me, and we beat Vito Lopez, the county boss, which is another power system that we wanted to dismantle. Every opportunity that I got, even before I was elected, I fought power, and I wasn't afraid of it. Then I went to the city council and passed 2 pieces of legislation for police reform. They told me that my career, I was committing political suicide for the Right to Know Act, which was just making it so that illegal consent searches wouldn't happen in this city. After the work we did, 700,000 stops that were illegal through voluntary consent are practically non-existent in the city. These cops in the city do not do consent searches, illegal consent searches. It doesn't exist anymore in our city because of legislation that I passed that they told me would make it so that I would never have a future in politics. I passed commercial waste zones against the private carting industry to make sure that we reformed our sanitation work. And I say that because I was a sanitation commissioner and did more with that seat as the commissioner than the last, chair, than the last 4 or 5 council members that they were there before me. The transformative work I was doing, fighting against the powers that be and the lobbyists then as well. Every time somebody asked me to step up, I did it against power. I discharged the Right to Know Act against Bill de Blasio, who was an ally. It's the same thing I would do when Hakeem becomes speaker. I discharged the Right to Know Act when Melissa Mark Viverito, of which I'm an inner circle member for, when she pushed back. I would do the same thing with Hakeem Jeffries as well. I always stood against power for the right causes and always did what was right in my heart and in my conscience. And I will continue to do that as a congressman. And the last thing that I became borough president, and I have a huge problem with incrementalism. We do things slowly and we make progress slowly. And we're suffering so much in this city, for example. And everyone is just doing slow work. And I just wanted to speed it up. I gave all of my money to maternal health my first year, and it's what I talk about a lot. I call it my baby, no pun intended, but it's because Black women are dying at 8 times the rate as their white counterparts. And we know how to solve for that problem and stop that from happening. But the way to stop it from happening is by infusing a significant amount of resources into that work. So you didn't see me do flag raisings. We're not throwing parties the way we used to in Borough Hall. We're not doing Independence Day celebrations because people are suffering, people are dying, people are homeless, people are hungry. And I can't be the borough president that's throwing an event with wine and cheese and flag raisings and music while we have almost 100,000 migrants coming into this country sitting in cots in the Brooklyn Army Terminal. It's just not something that I had in my heart to do. So we stopped doing the parties and instead we invested our money in making sure we could take care of Black women. That's the type of person I am, always doing big things, doing it aggressively, fighting against power. I've done it my whole life, and I hope that when it's all said and done in June, I'll be doing it as your congressperson. So I want to say thank you. And I think that was less than 15 minutes, so because I do want to make it a conversation and go and have a conversation. I don't want to pick anyone because I don't want to get in trouble. Okay.
Okay, Aileen.
Hi, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
One thing,
Yes.
one piece of advice and then a comment. I've been dealing with your office on constituent services that were some issues that are very important to me. Did not get helpful advice. In fact, on 2 occasions, they put me in a worse position because I waited for them. I think if you do get to Congress, you need to make sure that the people that work for you know how to provide advice and know how to be help. And if they don't know the answers, to make sure that they actually find them. Because right now, it's not a good situation. And I relied on your office and they did not come through for me. That's
Okay.
one thing. The second
I would
thing.
love to also, before I leave, I would love to know what your issue was.
Yes,
So that I could.
I will
'cause
address that with
Another
you.
thing is, I do want to say I'm a creature of like know better, do better. If you let me know what the issue was, I'll see where my office couldn't follow through or couldn't help, and try to do better.
It was a bit of, when I was on the phone with him, he's promised me something, and then when I got the email, it was something.
Completely
He
different.
basically,
Okay, we'll talk.
yeah,
We'll
it
talk.
was not a good situation.
Thank you.
You have a question?
Yes, well,
Thank you.
okay, I would just a quick
Another one?
Because other people have
yeah, but
questions
there's a
later.
question, Julie.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've been in this district, 40 years. I'm a born and bred New Yorker as well. I have never seen the neighborhood so divided over a bike lane.
Yes.
Never, ever.
Yes.
And I actually also applied for the community board. I was rejected.
Okay.
Eric McClure
Yes.
was appointed chair.
Yes. Well, he was elected chair by his board. Okay.
He is also paid transportation advocate, and he was on the board, and I've never met him before. So I would like a little bit of an explanation as to why you appointed him, what his background is, and why there wasn't more transparency in getting that, the bike lane passed. Because right now, there's a lot of anger on that.
Okay. So first, I'll do. The first thing I'll say is I have a lot of respect for Eric McClure and the work he's done in the transportation world. Right now, our community boards, when I got in there, have been locations where any change and any modifications that are happening within our community are shut down almost every single time. Some community boards are better than others. Some are more open to change than others. But Eric McClure, what I wanted to do is expand transportation alternatives, not as the organization, but as actual alternatives in this borough. So I wanted to put transportation advocates all throughout the borough. We've expanded and we've increased transportation activists and advocates in almost every single community board in this borough, because we want to start advancing the master plan, the streets master plan of the city of New York, which includes expansion of bike lanes throughout the entire borough. Eric McClure is an advocate that does that work, so I appointed him to the community board in the district that he lives in. And how he got elected chair is the responsibility of that community board thereafter. That has nothing to do with me. So they elected him to be chair, and he's serving as chair. I have no say or influence in that effort. So I appointed him. I proudly appointed him. I appointed him because he is a transportation advocate, and he got elected chair by his body. You don't need to disclose that at all. Well, then we could talk about passing legislation, but we all advocate for a ton of stuff.
Oh, I don't need a microphone.
How are you?
Hi, thanks for coming.
I'm very happy to be here.
Hey, listen, you're following a legend.
Thank you, thank you.
I know her very well.
Yes,
Long
yes.
time. When you're in there on that first day in Congress and you get your vote and you go up those steps to the Capitol, it's like a very heady experience. You almost cry. My question is, should you win? It's a very difficult time down there and environment. You'd have to work with a lot of people you don't like and maybe not respect. So, apart from everything you're doing,
yes,
if you win, I'd like to know how you're going to deal with these people on that other side of the aisle. What kind of congressman would you like to be remembered for?
All right.
Thank you. Good question,
Thank
Karen.
you. Yes. So the two things. So yes, one thing I would say is that I believe myself to be a coalition builder, and I'm not a coalition builder because I compromise or I'm a coalition builder because I'm sincere and honest. And I have no problem talking to a Republican or talking to a centrist Democrat that might disagree with me on policy about exactly what my position is in a very sincere and honest way. And using and so they know what my position is always. And I've done that in the city council, and I've done that in Borough Hall. I got every single election district in this borough elected me for my re-election campaign. That includes conservative Borough Park and parts of the South Brooklyn, and includes super progressive areas like Williamsburg and Bushwick. And they don't agree on almost anything. But I always find common denominators, like where do we agree? And let's spend our time and our energy on getting the things that we agree done. And the things we disagree, that's another time and another day. I want to be able to affect meaningful change in people's lives, and I don't waste my time on fighting. I waste on fighting on the things we disagree on. I spend my time on investing on the things we do agree on and getting it done. And I'll just give one example. In Borough Park, I care deeply about transportation, and they do not want to see bike lanes. They do not want to see advances in transportation alternatives. But what they do care about is that their streets after Passover, they do like spring cleaning, and the streets are overrun with garbage. And they asked me if there's something that we can do working together. So my office for 3 years in a row has now done extra street cleaning through ACE, for example, to clean their streets. And they were deeply grateful for that. They disagree with me vehemently on transportation ideas and policies, but they were grateful that I found something that we do agree on and actually did something about it. It's how I expect to work with people in Congress. What I want to be remembered for is fighting, a fighter on the issues that I believe in. I want you guys to know where I stand, and that when I'm talking or fighting for those issues, that I'm clear, I'm concise, and I'm executing. And the last thing I want to say is outcomes. I'm an outcomes-driven elected official. I'm somebody that, when I got into office, I passed meaningful pieces of legislation. I'm not a fluff elected official. I don't throw parties. I don't pass pieces of legislation that are data and reporting. That's not what I do. I want to make sure that my legislation actually does something. So when I go to Congress, I hope that the legislation that I'm pushing and supporting, or the legislation that I'm pushing and supporting, is actual legislation that is going to help us, not a bunch of nonsense that'll have me say that I have 100 pieces of legislation that I passed that did absolutely nothing for my community. I want people to feel that when I fought for something that meant something and actually got it done.
That's all the time we have. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys so much.
Okay, great. And next we'll have Mr. DiNapoli, our comptroller. Yeah. We're going a little out of order. How are you? Good to see you. You have 15 minutes, so you can use it however you want. Talk about yourself or take questions.
Sure.
Halfway.
Or a little bit of both?
Yeah, do that.
All right. Good evening, IND. How are all the Democrats doing? All right. I know you've had a long evening already. Let me just reintroduce myself to most and perhaps introduce myself to some. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you once again. I very much appreciate your support when I've run in the past. I'm very proud to have been the Democratic and Working Families Party nominee for State Controller in 2010 and 2014 and 2018 and 2022, and looking forward to it once again in 2026. I first became familiar with this club and the great work that you do in promoting progressive Democrats when I arrived in the State Assembly, and an individual by the name of Eileen Dugan took me under her wing. And I had the privilege to serve with Joan Millman. And although I didn't have the privilege to serve with Joanne Simon in the Assembly, because I had already been in this position, I can tell you that that lineage continues of great representation from this community, and this club has been such an important part of that. I'm seeking the position again because we are at a very key moment in our state and our nation's history. The assaults that we are facing from Washington, from Trump and the DC Republicans, is wreaking havoc on our society in so many ways, and certainly from my perspective as state controller, I'm very concerned about our finances for our city and for our state. So a big part of our responsibility, right? Our shop doesn't do policy, we don't make law, but we collect a lot of data, we analyze a lot of data, and we produce reports and analysis to help inform the broader discussion so that our legislators and our governor and the public can have a thoughtful consideration of the important issues that we are facing. You know, we're in pretty good shape right now, but the challenge we face going into next year, both for our state budget, which will be unveiled shortly by the governor, and for New York City as well, we are going to start to feel the impact of the cuts coming out of Washington, particularly with regard to health care, but also nutrition programs, the SNAP program, education programs, energy programs. So again, a big part of what we've been doing is really analyzing in a thoughtful way state spending, state revenue, what will be the impact of these cuts. You know, even in a time when there are challenges, there are always better choices and better options that can be pursued. And certainly that's what I will continue to do, should I have the opportunity to serve as controller for another term, to help guide at the state level, at the city level, and local governments outside of New York City as well, to make sure that they have the best information possible about how we move our state forward. The Controller's Office has many important responsibilities, and I'm running for this position again because I put together an excellent team, a very professional team, and we have consistently delivered results for New Yorkers. And I want to continue to deliver results for New Yorkers. I've done the job, I've done it well, and I think in challenging times, you want a steady hand at the helm, analyzing the finances of the state, analyzing the finances of the city, and doing it with credibility. And that's really what I want to remind you of. I came into this position because the office was mired in scandal. My predecessor had to resign. The first challenge was to restore the credibility of the office with a sense of integrity and ethics, particularly with regard to managing the pension fund. In fact, just this week, we released the most recent, it's the fifth one, fiduciary review of how we manage the pension fund. And I'm very proud to report to you, and the report is available online, that it's found that we manage the fund with the highest ethical standards, and that not only do we manage the fund ethically, but the way we handle our asset allocation, how we approach fee management, we do it very much in line with similar peer funds. We are a large fund, similar to California, some of the other big states. We are right in line with how others manage pension funds. So I know it's the silly season, and I know folks say things that aren't true, but I want you to keep in mind, I'm not giving you a political judgment, I'm giving you an independent judgment that's out there. We also are regulated by the Department of Financial Services. Actually, they have an audit that's underway right now. It's not the first time we've been audited. No one has ever suggested anything other than the fact that our plan is not only well-funded, but well-managed. We have 1.2 million New Yorkers who depend on the strength of that pension fund. We're investing in smart ways to help businesses across the state. We have also been very, very clear that at the end of the day, whatever judgments we make on where to put our money, it has to be with the best interests of the members of the pension fund. That's our fiduciary responsibility. But we also believe that we need to be active as a shareholder. We hold corporate companies, corporate America, responsible on issues like climate change, on issues like executive compensation. I was part of a group that fought against Elon Musk's $1 trillion pay package. We lost that vote, but we made very clear where we stood on that issue. We make sure that issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI is not a bad word. That's what makes a company sustainable for the long term. So we press companies to make sure that they are treating their workers fairly, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation. We believe very strongly that DEI strengthens a corporate bottom line. I also want to mention our accountability and transparency efforts with the audits that we do of state agencies, public authorities, local governments, including New York City across our state. That's how we identify opportunities for governments to be more efficient. And in the worst case scenario, we sometimes find people stealing from the public. Unfortunately, we've had too many cases where we've had to refer our findings to local district attorneys. We have a great relationship with DA Gonzalez here in Kings County. But with DAs across state, our Attorney General, Tish James, who we partner with on so many issues, and I'm very proud to say that Tish James supports my election to controller once again, with the U.S. attorneys as well. We've gotten over $100 million in restitution of public money that's been stolen. And we are always laser focused in that area. We just had a couple of cases of Medicaid transportation, fraudulent bills that were being put in for transportation. You know, especially because Medicaid is under such attack from Washington. We have to make sure that none of that money is being wasted in any way. Let me just wrap up. There's a lot of things I could talk about, but I want to see if you have any questions. I'm also mindful that sometimes the state controller, because we cover the entire state, you may not realize that we do a lot of work specific to New York City. We have an office that just focuses on New York City issues and New York City finances. We do a focus on MTA finances as well as audits of the MTA, looking for opportunities for that. Very important agency to be more cost effective and efficient. We also have, particularly coming out of COVID, really looking at the trends that are happening in New York City. So we have a tracker that you could see, it's on our website, that really looks at city agencies. What are their staffing levels? What are their budgets? How much money is being spent on what? We do a tracker of 311 complaints where you could track by zip code or by neighborhood what's happening as far as 311 complaints in Brooklyn or in any part of New York City. And our audits, we've been particularly focused on housing. So we just put out an audit this past week on the City FEP's homeless voucher program and some of the ways in which that program can be made much better in terms of its oversight and administration. Mitchell-Lama, we've had a series of audits on Mitchell-Lama housing projects, developments rather, that really have not been managed as effectively, and the folks residing there have really suffered some very difficult circumstances because of that. So we do try, and housing discrimination complaints being processed by the New York City Division of Human Rights, and some real delays in terms of how they were handling it. So whether you live in suburban areas like where I live out on Long Island, or in New York City, or in upstate New York, the reach of our office is very, very broad. We manage the College Savings Program, 529, some of you may have participated in that. We return people's lost money with unclaimed funds. If you remember nothing else of what I say, check our website today and get some unclaimed funds back. And I'll just sum up with this. I love this job. I love the people I work with. It's a time of great challenge in our city, in our state, and in our nation. And I believe the experience that I have and the proven track record that I have is what's needed in this office to get us through the next few years. We will be in a better time before you know it. I know it doesn't feel that way right now. We will win back the House of Representatives this year. We will have Hakeem Jeffries as the Speaker by the end of this year, and we're going to be a part of that. And I want to be a part of moving New York State forward. So I tried to do it in a Brooklyn minute. Let me end it there to see if you have any questions.
Okay. Ariel, you're getting a microphone.
Hi, I actually canvassed with you for City Council member Lynn Schulman back in November. And I just want to thank you first off for coming out to help in some of those districts where there were, it was running against in a more moderate district. And I think that was really great that you came out to help. And I think one thing that your opponent said that I don't know much about this, but he said that that you invest in fossil fuels. And I was curious if you could comment on that and correct him if that's wrong, or what we should know about his perspective on climate change and using the pensions funds for that versus what your view is.
Yeah, well, to the first point of your observation, I've been helping Democrats all across the state because I only got to my position in the state assembly because of help I got over the years, and I try to help other people, including as controller. We're a large pension fund. We're $290 billion. Much of our public equity holdings are in index funds, passively invested. So no surprise when we're that big, we're invested virtually in any public company. I believe climate change is real, and my last 4 or 5 years in the State Assembly, I chaired the Environmental Conservation Committee. So environmental issues have always been top of mind to me. We were the first public pension fund in the country to establish a climate action plan. Why did we do that? I was invited to participate in the Paris negotiations on the Paris Agreement. I was asked to be on a panel because we were doing some very, at the time, groundbreaking initiatives on climate investing with a low emission index fund. What we try to do because of our size, because it's more cost effective, is do as much as we can through index funds. So we started with a low emission index. We still have that index, and we've done other index funds that are climate sensitive. What we've done as the climate action plan is that we have taken sectors, starting with the energy sector, we established a set of minimum standards that we expect companies to abide by. And our strategy on the climate issue is to do a combination of strategies. Number one, understand that advocacy is important, so participating in the Paris conference, pressing state and federal policymakers to make sure they keep climate in mind and make decisions that comport with the goals of the Paris Agreement. Do investing, seizing opportunities in the emerging low-carbon economy. So we have a $40 billion sustainable and climate solutions investment allocation. We've got about 28 billion of that out the door now. Clean energy, particularly solar, wind, clean energy that you'd be familiar with. For companies that do not meet our minimum standards, we then have options in terms of how we treat them. We can divest, we can restrict, or we can stay invested but continue to engage them and press them to do a better job of comporting with Paris, doing disclosure of their greenhouse gas emissions, and requiring them to have some plan to reduce those emissions. So we have, in some cases, divested from fossil fuels, particularly with regard to coal, oil sands, shale oil. With integrated oil and gas, we have done some divestment, but not 100%. Why? Because we also have to do an economic analysis of any divestment. If in the financial analysis we think the fund will be harmed, we will not take that step. So the short answer to your question is that we have done some divestment, we have certainly done some restriction, and we still keep a priority on engagement with companies to make sure that they understand that climate is a real issue that must be addressed.
We have like 1 minute left, so if it can be a super short question, super short answer. Matt, since you have the microphone.
Finally paid off. I'm a pension member, at least I think I am because I'm tier 6. But your opponent in here, just if you want to brief, came and said that, accused you of underperforming with your investments as controller. Would you like to just very briefly address what you think of that and how you think you've done in terms of like the investment funds that you have underneath you?
I've done great. We have the best funded large public pension fund in the country. The only person that says we've underperformed is my opponent. And his analysis is a political document. It's not even accurate in terms of the numbers. Do not believe the BS that's out there. Look at the independent analysis with our fiduciary, the most recent one, but all the fiduciary reviews. Look at the audits that have been done by Department of Financial Services over the years. You know, the pension fund has almost doubled under my tenure. We're now at $290 billion. And you know what? We paid out over $200 billion in benefits over that time to New York retirees. That's not an underperforming pension fund. We have a long-term goal of a 5.9% return. It's one of the more conservative goals because we work very hard to make sure that we are not putting your retirement future at risk. That's why we have a diversified portfolio. My opponent seems to suggest that we got to put everything in the stock market, and that's going to take it. Well, the past couple of years, the stock market's been doing great. You know what? I was there when the global financial crisis hit, and we lost billions of dollars because the stock market did terrible. I am trying to manage the fund in a way that no matter what the ups and downs are of the stock market, we have a diversified portfolio, conservatively invested, so that no matter what's happening on Wall Street, we can be sure that the pensions are going to be there for the retirees of today and the retirees of tomorrow. My opponent's analysis is purely political. It's scaring people unnecessarily. And the reason I'm going to get elected again is that the people that are part of the pension system understand how well I have been protecting their retirement security, including yours.
Thank you. Okay, great. We're going to take the next candidate. We're up for questions. Congressman, if you could please come up. Hi. Thank you. You have 15 minutes, so you can talk about yourself or ask for questions.
Okay, 15 total. Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. I know you guys have been here for a little while, so we'll jump right in. It's been really my honor to represent you for the last 3+ years, and I want to put it in a little bit of context. You know, I am truly the beneficiary of the American dream. My grandmother escaped anti-Semitism in Russia in the 1920s, came through Ellis Island, settled in this country, and her brother opened a fruit and vegetable wholesale business that was able to put all of his siblings, including my grandmother, through college. And on my father's side, my descendant relative was Levi Strauss, who went out west, and instead of mining for gold, he built a business on giving denim jeans to everyone who did mine for gold. And the reason I say that is that those are two stories that can only happen in this country. And it's part of the reason why I love this country so much. And it is the reason why I have chosen this path for my career, to make sure, as best I can, that everybody gets access to that American dream. And in this day and age, unfortunately, because of the massive growth and rise of wealth inequality over the last couple decades, that American dream is inaccessible for far too many. And part of what I am doing in Congress, and what my record shows, is I am trying to make sure that we are lifting up all of those who need a little boost to get access to the American dream. So I am supporting all sorts of legislation that is essential for families. I co-founded the Dad's Caucus in Congress and the 3 pillars are universal child care, paid family leave, and to increase child tax credit. And the reason that we did that is that traditionally those are issues that people assume will fall to mothers or women to advocate for. And we, as fathers, I'm a father of 5, wanted to make sure that we were advocating for families as well, because it's up to parents and families, fathers and mothers, to do that. The way, though, we're going to pay for that in a divided government where the Republicans do not view revenue as a part of the deficit and a part of the economy, is we're going to have to make the wealthy pay their fair share. And so I recently introduced a bill called the Robin Hood Act, which specifically targets super wealthy folks who avoid paying taxes almost altogether because they borrow against their assets. Jeff Bezos pays 1% effective tax rate. Elon Musk pays 3% effective tax rate because they borrow against Tesla and Amazon, and they don't pay tax on that. So my bill would tax those loans, fairly simple, but it would generate almost $30 billion of revenue that would pay for universal child care nationwide. And I use these examples because this is the way that I have approached the job on this issue and every other issue, which is you start with your values and your core beliefs and the desire to lift people up and give them the access that they need, which requires more federal programs to make sure that people are not worried about food, shelter, healthcare, education, that they can focus on succeeding and they can continue their careers even after they have children. But I take a very different approach to the job, which is I am trying to figure out at all times how we can get results, how we can find solutions that are going to work in Washington, which is a very, very different place than New York City or Albany. Because to pass legislation, you have to be creative. You usually will have to be bipartisan. And so you're going to have to convince other people that what your objective is also in their best interest. And so I was very pleased, for example, when a few Republicans came up to me on the floor and said, I like that idea of that Robin Hood Act. It's not going to pass this year, but if we're in divided government next year and there's a compromise piece of legislation, this is a palatable way for Republicans to be able to generate revenue that makes the wealthy pay their fair share so that we have more revenue to lift up people. And I use that really as one example, and I'll use one other example. I do want to take some questions. I know we only have 15 minutes. The immigration dragnet that is going on right now with ICE is unconscionable, it is un-American, and it is absolutely unacceptable. And from the very first day that I walked into my district office in Manhattan and saw masked ICE agents arresting immigrants coming out of court, I was horrified. And I have been stepping up and fighting against it ever since. And I've been doing it in multiple ways, and I think this is another example that reflects the work I've done, my record, and how I approach the job, which is going to be very, very important in January of 2027 when we take back the House and we need to hold Donald Trump accountable. This is to say that I have introduced legislation, including to unmask ICE agents, to make sure they cannot arrest immigrants when they show up for court appearances or their check-ins. It is to figure out a way to file a lawsuit that we won that allowed members of Congress to do congressional oversight of the ICE detention facilities, which I was able to do a few weeks ago, and found 4 cleaning people there when I walked in the morning after the order came out, which is why oversight is important, because they were getting their act together and the conditions were much better. And what I think is really the most important part is that we have created a triage center at our district office, 290 Broadway, across the street from 26 Federal Plaza, where we are working with court watchers, advocates, legal groups, and families of those who've been arrested come to our office. We make sure they have food, shelter, medical care. We get them to sign a privacy waiver so we can deal directly with ICE, which is much more effective than if they have to deal directly with ICE. And we refer them to lawyers, and we're working with Make the Road and New York Immigration Coalition and NILAG, and they will then file habeas petitions immediately that day. We've been able in the last 2 months since we stood this up to get 10 people out of immigration detention because of that operation that we are running. And that's the focus, the determination, the work, and the effort that I am bringing to this job every day across the board in all sorts of different ways. And it is to get results, to help the people of this district, the people of New York City, the people in our country. And lastly, what I would add is, as many of you may know, I was the lead counsel on the first impeachment of Donald Trump. And I raise that because that was not a particularly simple investigation, because we got all sorts of obstruction. But we were able to figure out a way to build the case and to win, to get him impeached, which had an influence on the election. And so right now, as we are facing all of these crises and all of these attacks on our democracy, our way of life, our values, everything that we hold dear, our most vulnerable populations, our friends and neighbors from other countries, those who are on SNAP or Medicaid, we need people who not only are going to fight Donald Trump and this administration, but we need people who know how to succeed and know how to beat them. And I have a proven track record of doing that in Washington and getting that done. And I want to continue to do that on your behalf in January of 2027, when there will be numerous investigations of this administration for all of the horrific things that they have been doing. And I look forward to being a leader on the front lines of those investigations.
So we have about 5 minutes for questions. So we'll start over here with this lovely woman in the glasses. Yes.
Hi, Congressman. So you just mentioned that it's really important to start with values, but what you talked about with ICE was really coming around the edges about them not being masked and like dealing with some oversight. Do you honestly believe ICE is a good thing for our country about what's happening in Minnesota right now? They're going around shooting people with like no legal justification. They're beating people up. They're basically kidnapping people, and they have detained like thousands of people already. Is this an agency we should continue to have?
I think I said initially that it was unconscionable, un-American, and unacceptable. I don't think there's anything that has happened in my 3 years of this job that has hit me harder personally than what is going on with this dragnet. And it's not just the masks and the snatching people out of court who are trying to do things the right way. It's not just deporting so many people who are part of our communities. It is militarizing this agency to incite violence with unqualified, unvetted, untrained officers who are going around now demanding people's citizenship papers. So I could not object to what ICE is doing anymore. And I do not believe that ICE can remain as an agency certainly in this form. I used to believe that we needed to reform ICE. I don't see how we can do that. I'm open to ideas, but I think at this point we have to get rid of it and start over with an entirely different structure and a different makeup. We do need to have some immigration enforcement, but it is so corrupt and so corrosive that the way that they are acting right now, that we have to, I don't see how it can continue, and I'm going to oppose the appropriations bill next week until some guardrails are placed on ICE.
Hi, Congressman. I asked a similar question of Brad. As you know, as a former impeachment lead counsel, executive abuse of power now is rampant. One of the things that I think is the most dangerous thing that Trump is doing is to just trample all over spending powers, congressional spending powers. I want to hear your thoughts specifically on what Congress can do to fight back against impoundment and the manipulation of the loopholes and all of the different cracks in the Impoundment Control Act, pocket rescissions, manipulation of programmatic delays, all the different tricks that the administration is doing. How can Congress take back what it's been ceding for decades, which is its essential power to direct spending?
So Congress can still do a lot if Congress wanted to do anything. And one of the problems that the challenges that we have faced is the Republicans control Congress. So we can initiate, and you know this, but we can't initiate investigations. We cannot file lawsuits. It's all majority controlled. And we can use our leverage when the filibuster applies to try to get some of the most important policies or the most important guardrails in. And I have been perhaps the strongest advocate of using that leverage dating back to last December, when I thought we should have held out when the Trump and Musk yanked the bipartisan budget bill that had been negotiated and had a lot of our priorities, and they never came back. And I stood up in our caucus, and I was the only one who said we have to keep fighting. So we have to use the power of the person this way and use the leverage however we have. When we take back the majority, there are lots of things that we can do. And we have been coordinating with the state attorneys general because we can't file suit, but they can. And so I'm on the litigation task force that is coordinating with them. And those suits have broadly been successful until they get to the Supreme Court. But it's not a function of Congress not having the power. It's a function of this Congress not using the power.
Thank you, Congressman. That's all.
That's all? All right. Thank you, guys.
I think our last candidate might be downstairs. We can give upcoming events updates in the meantime. Okay, so we talked about the holiday party on February 1st. Hopefully everyone's coming to that. You'll get at least one, if not two more emails about it before it happens. On January 18th, which I think is Sunday, is Kayla Santos-Suoso's induction. And on January 29th is the Honorable Juliet Howard's induction. So if anyone has questions about that, you can ask Seamus. And on February 5th, which I guess will be like the Wednesday after the holiday party, is Norma Jean Jennings' induction. She was here earlier. I don't know if she's still here. Yes, it's quite a long meeting, so I understand. Okay, is Claire here? Where is she? Oh, she's on the screen. Oh, okay. Seamus, I don't know how to do this.
She's coming in person. That's on me. I got it.
Just unmute.
Ask to unmute. Remove.
Oh, yes. Okay. Most importantly, sorry, Assembly member, just 1 second. For those who want to become county committee members, do rep your block, please go see Joan. And Ms. Valdez, you have 15 minutes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, everyone can see you. You're on the screen. You have 15 minutes. You can talk about yourself and then you can take questions and we'll pass around the mic here.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you all so much for having me. I know I'm coming in at the end of a long meeting, and so I appreciate you staying out and engaging in democracy. It's a real honor to come before the club that has been responsible for incredibly high turnout in the district, mobilizing voters, doing really robust petitioning. My name is Claire Valdez. I represent District 37 in Queens. But before that, I was a labor organizer. I organized within UAW, Local 2110. And so just wanted to say how much I appreciate the steadfastness and dedication of the many members who do the really hard, grinding work of gathering signatures and knocking on doors. Just a lot of respect for that. So I come out of the labor movement. I came to politics through my union and through being a worker. For much of my life, I worked low wage, minimum wage jobs, customer service jobs. And it's how I learned how the system really works, by trapping workers in a sense of powerlessness when you're like too exhausted to even think beyond your next shift. My union introduced me to what collective power looks like and can win. And that's the spirit I brought to Albany when I was elected last year. It's the thing I want to bring to Washington, D.C. To represent District 7. The retirement of Nydia Velasquez is a real loss to the progressive movement. She has been a champion for working class people, for immigrants, for small businesses, a champion for Puerto Rico and self-determination and anti-colonial struggles all over the world. And I think this district that is incredibly progressive deserves a champion who will follow in her footsteps. And will fight and have the kind of moral courage that's required in this moment when the Trump administration is tearing families apart, is sending ICE into our neighborhoods to brutalize our neighbors, when the Trump administration is trampling on free speech rights, trampling on the ability to organize unions, attacking the NLRB and NLRA, and starting even more forever wars abroad with no congressional oversight. We need real fighters in DC. That is the record I have in Albany, fighting to tax the rich, to fight for immigration protections like New York for All, protesting, getting arrested a few too many times perhaps, and standing with workers who deserve healthcare, housing, dignity, a solid union, good jobs. And that's what I want to fight for in DC. So much of what we are trying to win in Albany is stymied because of federal legislation and the roadblocks we experience in DC. And under this administration, we will probably have a hard time getting things passed. But we do need our people who are ready to stand up and fight, and say no to this administration. So that's the energy I want to bring to Washington. It's what we're campaigning on. We launched our campaign last week with 400 of our neighbors coming out to celebrate with us and have a really exciting and robust field operation coming up in a couple of weeks. So I'm really honored just to be here and to share some of this vision with you all, and really happy to take questions. And again, thanks for being out in the long meeting. I know it's a long Thursday night.
Thank you, Assembly Member. Does anyone have any questions? Susanna?
Matt just stands next to me now. Great to have you here, Assembly Member. Thank you so much. So because there is just such a absolute chaos and mess happening in DC, what are some other strategies that you are going to be employing that it might not get bills passed? Look, great, let's really try to take the House. I think that's fabulous. We're going to try to take everything. But what are other things that you are going to be doing besides just passing bills, since that might not happen for a little while?
Yes, absolutely. It's a really good question, right? Because under this administration, and honestly, even under a Democratic administration, legislation can take a long time to happen. That's been my experience in Albany for sure. And so, I think being willing to do stuff beyond the kind of like legislative, strongly worded letters, et cetera, is really important. I've been involved in a lot of different direct actions, mobilizing neighbors around things like immigration, standing up against, the genocide in Gaza, organizing with my coworkers in my former union to demand the things that we deserve. I really believe that it's necessary to organize everyday working people to kind of come into this movement together, and do things outside the halls of power too. My office has done know your rights trainings to empower our neighbors, working with other electeds to put on workshops. Our offices, especially congressional offices, have a lot of resources and have deep footprints in these communities and districts. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity to, again, do trainings, workshops, know your rights, help galvanize our neighbors to come out for hands-off trainings, marches. I was at the march, man, now I'm forgetting, it was last weekend around ICE in Venezuela. And shows of force like that mean something. They really do. They mean something to our neighbors who are maybe too afraid, and understandably too afraid, to come out themselves. It means something to the people in power to see thousands of people on the street. And so I think there are a lot of things we can do outside of passing legislation, which again is going to be difficult under this administration for the foreseeable future.
Thank you. Any other questions?
All right. Is there any really niche policy that you want to push for if elected, or that you pushed for in your current ending seat, that you never get to discuss, that you want to spend some time elaborating on, gushing about?
Wow, wonderful question. So I come out of, again, the labor movement. Workers' rights are really important to me. And my union just completely changed my life. And I think too few workers are able to experience the kind of joy and struggle that is the democracy of a union, and what unions can really win for working people. And so one thing that we haven't talked about this yet publicly so much, but there's one thing that I'm really excited about figuring out how to work, is kind of a federal version of the Emergency Workplace Organizing Committee, also known as EWOC. It was stood up during the pandemic to help frontline workers and essential workers organize unions when working conditions were terrible. It was kind of like a hotline for workers. They could call in, be connected to an organizer, and learn how to talk to their coworkers and do the kind of spade work that's required. And I'm very curious to think about how can we help out there? How can the federal government be a real partner in workers finding their collective power, learning how to organize? And so that's one of the things that I've been really excited to think about. It's time for unions and organized labor to have a real friend in government, rather than the enemy that honestly we have right now.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay. I think it's, oh, Assembly member. Matt has a microphone.
Hi, Claire, it's Joanne. It's in my Lauren Bacall voice. So I have a question for you, and that is, you're running against an opponent that has been in office for a long time and has been representing part of this district. How are you going to organize, who is on your team that is going to help you do the groundwork, do the door knocking, do the strategy to win in a competitive primary like this?
Yeah, it's like a really good question. And I think as somebody member, we probably picked up the same colds. I'm just a little bit more nasally than I usually am. State of the state got us all down. It is true. I've only been in office for a year, but we are building a really robust campaign right now. We have a number of folks who are really instrumental in standing up Zoran Mamdani's campaign last year, who developed the field plan, who are advising us on fundraising, who are advising us on how to make connections with people in parts of the district that I haven't represented or know as well. It's a big territory, and so there are a lot of folks coming over from that side, and meetings like this are places too where I get the opportunity to share my vision, but also get to meet, and I wish I was there in person. I'm sorry, I had some other meetings tonight. But to go out and really meet people who are on the ground, organizing, have been in their community for a long time, know everything about, Newtown Creek and street safety in Greenpoint and housing in Cypress Hills. I've spent a few years doing electoral organizing on other races, and I've spent a lot of time door knocking in Bushwick and Cypress Hills and East New York, and have a kind of field memory, perhaps, of those neighborhoods. But it's true that I'm working with some of my elected colleagues in state government to make more connections. Emily Gallagher has been a huge help. Obviously, our current mayor, Zoran Mamdani, has endorsed and has been incredibly useful in giving some advice. And so we're building out a real team right now. But I look to many groups like yours who have the muscle memory of this district, know it very well, and who know how to put in the work to help support this campaign.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much. I think that's it. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? All right, I think I heard a lot of seconds, so thanks everyone. Have a good night. Thank you. I